One of our programs from Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake called Trees for Sacred Places, and it is a program in collaboration with the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay, in which we plant trees, all native trees of course, because they're most beneficial for restoring the watershed, but also it includes a spiritual educational program. And the whole program is free. The one criteria that needs to be met in order for your church to qualify is that you have space to plant a minimum of about 60 trees, and some places do. So if you're interested, I have flyers about that. Give you one here and a couple of other folks. The other program that we just are launching now, and I mentioned this last week, but I just want to reiterate that in the Maryland legislature, which of course we all know it's a short session from now through to May, and there is a legislation supported by Senator Ramirez, who is supporting a ban on plastic bags for the whole state of Maryland, which is really a move forward. And of course, those of you who have done any creek cleanups know that plastic bags are a huge trash contributor to clogging up our creeks, especially with stormwater runoff. So our website, Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake, you go to the advocacy page, and you'll find there a whole list of different things that you can do to participate in the bag ban. And we have 6 different actions with sample letters for your congregation to do, and we're encouraging you to gear up now, so that, because sometimes it takes a while to go through the hoops of approval within your congregation, but we have all the resources you need right here to launch a campaign within your own congregation to participate in the bag ban during these next few months. So those are 2 actions that I wanted to promote right away: the Trees for Sacred Places and the ban on plastic bags. And we have an announcement from Karen Liu, who works for Interfaith Power and Light, at an event right close by in Annapolis. I'll have take one to reverse.
Hey everyone, my name is Karen. Like Chloe said, I'm with Interfaith Power and Light. We work with congregations to respond to climate change. We're good friends with Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake. We are hosting a prayer breakfast for clean energy on February 11th that we invite any clergy or religious leader in Maryland to attend. And so invite you to bring this flyer to your clergy person and your congregation and encourage them to come. We're trying to pass 2 important bills in the Maryland State Legislature this spring to renew the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Act, which is an important measure in Maryland to reduce our greenhouse gases, and also the Maryland Clean Energy Jobs Act, which will increase the amount of renewable energy that our state has to buy. If you know that your clergy is already coming to the prayer breakfast, then you can turn to the other side and check out the Clean Energy Lobby Nights, where you can go to Annapolis and lobby for these 2 important bills, and you'll see all the dates if you're in Anne Arundel County's February 8th. So you can go to a lobby night, and then the next day you can go to the bag ban rally. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen. And if you want more information, you can go to also with Interfaith Power and Light's website and get on their mailing list as well. So, but we will be publicizing all of these events in our newsletter too. We work very closely together and in collaboration on events like this. Okay, let me jump to the next thing we're going to talk about, which is steps to form a green ministry. And so if you don't pull out that particular handout, and I'm not going to read through the whole thing for you. This is meant to be for your resource packet that you can refer to. But I'd like to start off just by asking how many of you already have a green team or an earth care ministry or something like that. Raise your hand. You've got 1, 2, couple, 3, 4 over here. Yes, 5. Okay. Could anybody of you folks that do have, I wonder if you could just share something about what the kinds of things you do and maybe a sentence or two about how you got started. Is there anybody who'd like to? Yeah.
Hello, I'm Holly Willis. I'm at Our Lady of the Fields Church in Millersville. It's right down the street. Funny story is that I think it was last summer, towards about May of the last year, I was looking in the bulletin and I saw it said Care for Creation meeting, and I was like, oh, what is that about? And then it just prompted my head. I was like, I wonder what that is. So they met first Saturday of the month at 9. So I went to a meeting and I found out that it was about, it's like our little green team, Care for Creation. And I think it was a little bit misleading because I think some people thought maybe it was like a pro-life group. It's pro-life in a different way, but I think it's a lot of, because some of my friends are like, oh, I didn't know that's what that group was about. So it's kind of interesting that it sparked my interest. So our group, we have, it started, I think a year before this past year. We have a straw bale garden that we tend. We grow organic vegetables for St. Vincent de Paul Church in Baltimore. We have a Friday night ministry that we grow, but we feed the people there every Friday, no matter what, all year round, every Friday. It's a ministry that we have, but we inserted this other part where we're actually growing the vegetables in straw bales. So this past harvest, we had about 400 pounds of vegetables that we sent to Baltimore, and they were very grateful of that. But it involves a lot of planning and such. And so over the course of the summer, there was some more interest in, well, we have this garden. The garden needs bees, so we have beehives. So we have 2 beehives. We're going to get honey maybe that next spring, adding more beehives. And we also have a pollinator garden that I helped install over the summer. So that's our initial thing. And then I raised my hand and said, oh, let's get some trees. So I've actually started the process of getting trees through Trees for Sacred Spaces. So I got that started, and we're going to plant this fall of this year. So that's my story. Is it a lot? I don't think it's enough.
Anybody else like to share what you're doing?
Well, we just broke ground and we have the ponds and stuff in, but it's too late in the year to plant. So we're in the process of getting volunteers, especially the kids, teenagers and stuff, to come out in the spring and help put the plants and stuff in place. And we're still not finished yet because we've got a long way to go. The tree planting already been there and done that. And we're clearing in certain areas and things. You got to put in drainage just so the water won't run onto the land because the road is higher than what we at. It's just little things that we do. We just put the rain barrels in so that water the gardens around the church.
So, is there anybody else here? You want to say anything?
We did, through a grant, we did a watershed garden, and we put in a wildflower meadow and a butterfly garden. And then we're also building, we have a woodland area, so we're building a network of trails so that people can explore the property and learn to appreciate what God has given us in terms of natural plants and animals.
Can you remind us what church?
The United Church of Christ in Annapolis.
Well, at our our church, I joined the environmental committee there about a year ago, and at that time a grant was underway for a regenerative stream conveyance system on the property. It's 5.5 acres. And the property drains 27 acres of Eastport stormwater right now through storm sewer pipes right into Back Creek. So in the spring, we're going to break ground on a $1.1 million grant that we received through the DNR and the Bay Alliance, Chesapeake Alliance. And it's pretty exciting, and it will include this stream conveyance system of bioswales that filter out the sediment and nitrates and all of the other phosphates. And then there's a habitat area that is not part of that grant that is going to be part of one of my capstone project, and one other person has done a capstone project there. So it's 3.5 acres of removing invasives and planting natives and putting in BMPs all over the place, and an educational trail with the Maritime Museum, and a living shoreline. It's awesome.
Well, all of that is very inspiring. One of the things that I wanted to, for those of you who haven't started green teams, I think that it's really important to find where the passion lies. You know, where do people, in different congregations may have different sources of inspiration. It might be in service to the community, to feed the community and provide, healthy food. It might be to beautify the grounds. It might be, to actually show as a living educational center. So there might be these different ways of engaging.
So how do you find out what that passion is in your, because we have a pretty big congregation.
That's a great question. Now, there's several different ways, and I'm going to share a story because I did a little bit of community organizing in my neighborhood around issues. And there's something called, has anybody here heard of open source process, an open source process? Well, I'm not going to do it justice tonight because you'd have to get a kind of whole training about it, but brief, I'll give you an example. Our neighborhood had an annual meeting, so at least I had a captive audience, but ahead of time I said, well, we're going to talk about what our priorities are here in the community, and that will actually dictate what kind of actions we want to take. And so as people came in, an open source is you draw multiple ideas from a variety of sources. So I had people, when they registered, they came in and invited them to each write down on 3 Post-it notes one thing they really wanted to see change in their neighborhood, or an improvement, or something they were excited about. And you could do this for green ministry, always have food. You have a potluck or something, y'all come and let's talk about how we can care for God's creation, or frame it, drawing upon, in your case, drawing upon the encyclical. How can we put the encyclical into action of caring for a common home? So I had all these people do that, and then I had a helper who we posted them when the people came in, we had post all these Post-its on the wall. And then while they were engaged in another part of the meeting, the two of us started sorting all of these Post-its. And guess what? They fell into about 3 or 4 different categories. And then we divided those categories up in 3 or 4 groups and had people sit and talk about why are they interested in a community garden? Why are they interested in saving energy? Why are they interested in better communication and support for elderly people? There's a variety. There were sort of 4 different priority areas that emerged out of that open space process. So that's one way you can do to garner or gather ideas. You also might start with the very basic, like let's do a book study. Let's study the encyclical and have, I know St. Matthew's Catholic Church in Baltimore chose 3 areas of the encyclical. Solidarity with the poor was one, restoring God's creation, and there was a 3rd area. There's the issues that Pope Francis talks about in the encyclical. And they had a study session over a course of 3 different weekends that followed the followed the Mass, and people could sit and they could hear about what did the encyclical say, what are we going to do about this, how can we put it into action. So it becomes a groundwork that then you can kind of build upon. So those are some ideas to get people moving, really out of their own faith tradition. So those are some starting points. One of the things that really helps is if you, once you get a group of people, and I want to refer you to a particular resource that we have called a Toolkit for Faithful Stewards. If you'll bear with me just a minute, I got to pull it out here. So we published this, and it's available online on our website, completely free for download. And in this toolkit, you'll find these steps. So, but they go into further detail. And I wanted to share with you some more answers to her question about knowing your audience. So on page 7 of that toolkit, we talk about when you know your audience and what they're passionate about and their interests are, that you can build upon this and then begin asking groups to join you on projects. So, for example, if there is a watershed awareness or there's an energy conservation awareness, yeah, you don't have it in here. What I'm saying is you can download this whole kit right off of our website. I'll actually pull up the website page so you can see it. Bear with me for a minute here. So on our resources page for interfaith partners for the Chesapeake, you see right there, Toolkit for Faithful Stewards, making the most of watershed projects to raise awareness and build momentum. And so I encourage you to, after this class, when you got some time, to peruse that resource, because it lays the faith basis for a lot of this work, and it includes many of the resources that we'll be looking at in just a few moments. So I want to move on for a moment here in terms of looking at some of the advice at the end of this sheet, because I think there's some good pitfalls to avoid, suggestions on the back side of your Green Steps to Green ministry. Be visible, have fun. Sometimes, you know, we can talk about these environmental issues and we can be very dour about it or down-faced, because Lord knows some of it's some very serious problems. But really, people are attracted more by having a sense of fun and camaraderie and community together in how you present this. And as you engage in recruiting, it's really great to have people that have energy. You know, they don't necessarily have to be experts, but if they got the passion behind it, then you can really go somewhere with this, your project or your green ministry. And just jumping down some of the key points here, checking out the menu for action for ideas. Now, I shared with you, there should be in your handouts, an abbreviated version of the menu for action. Do you find that, menu for action? It was a handout back here.
Sorry, I didn't get it from the team.
Oh, okay, great. All right, thank you. That's great. All right. So I'm giving you a handout which is really a condensed version of the menu for action, but I want to show you also on our website where you can find it. It's also on our drop-down menu resource page. And when you open it up, you'll see this full list of many different, there's tab tabs across the bottom of this resource that have Bible studies, and then you can look at where can you find environmental organizations, and it's just a huge, see all across the top here, each one of those tabs you can click on. Let's take a look at watershed, and you see denominational resources. Here we go. Watershed protection, restoration, actions to take. So if there's no shortage of ideas here. I encourage you also to take a look at this and navigate around finding. If you, for example, want to learn more about food, various organizations and actions that work on food justice and community gardening, etc. So both curriculum as well as action, education and action. So I commend that to you as another resource. And it's an active document, so there you'll find when you go into the website that you can add to it. You just click on the comment area, and you can, if you see something there that sparks an idea about another organization that's not listed, we'd like to have your input and make this even more robust source for you. So, let me go here. All right, so, just a moment. I'm going to look at that in a minute. Okay. So, let's move on to the next thing we're going to talk about very briefly, which is some of the issues and topics that were brought up during the interfaith panel, and some of the ways that you can connect with either denominational groups or with interfaith groups. And so another link that is actually, it's on your, should be on your resource page, and if it's not, just a moment, lift it up here. Yeah, you can see on your agenda, I've included the links for both of these, the menu for action and the toolkit. But I wanted to show you one that shows organizations, and that is, just a moment here. Program, bear with me a moment. Have the links. Here we go. Think. It's organizations. And if you have, for example, you want to know where the particular denominational groups are. How many of you know a group that is affiliated with your denomination? For example, I know Presbyterians have Earth Care congregations, and it's a national network of Earth Care congregations. There's also, I know Lutherans have Lutherans Caring for Creation, and it's a national group that provides resources for local congregations. So, do you have other denominations that you're aware of that have Green Team national groups? Anybody else? Yes.
Someone sent something to me about Catholic Alliance for the environment, and it's a national thing, and I have information at home.
I do subscribe to a newsletter from Catholic Ecology.
Okay.
So Catholic Ecology might be another one. So, so I encourage you, if you don't already know, to search around for, see if your denomination has a group. Bear with me. Free up my hand here. Okay. Because I want to scroll down this so you can see. So we have on this sheet not only environmental groups, but here's the groups that I wanted to point you to. National and international faith-based organizations that focus on religion and ecology. Many people don't know that even in the the evangelical community, there are environmentalists, and even those who actually do believe climate change is a fact. The Evangelical Environmental Network is a wonderful organization that works on environmental awareness within the evangelical community, and they do a lot of education and action around climate change as well. So you'll see, this is, again, not an exhaustive list, but we encourage, as we say right at the top of the page, help us improve this list. If there are suggestions, please let us know so that we can add to the list and have it even be more complete. So those are some suggested ways of connecting with the broader network and actually then benefiting by the resources that are already out there in your own denomination or your own faith community. And there are ways of enriching your own understanding of what your denomination stands for, and you can actually organize together. Sometimes the groups, for example, the Presbyterians Earth Care Ministry will have in their, like the National Capital Presbytery, they have a group meeting so that all the churches that are Earth Care congregations can meet together and share ideas and gain inspiration as well. So that's a wonderful way to get support from your own community. Would you like to say anything about Lutherans Caring for Creation? Put you on the spot.
The Delaware Maryland Synod has been doing it for a couple of years, and we have what they call the Creation Care Team. And like I said, it's the Delaware Maryland Synod, so we go from clear out in far western Maryland, clear to the eastern shore. So we have representatives from various churches that are interested not only in the environment, but things like changing different types of light bulbs, heating systems, this type of stuff, anything to reduce energy usage. We get into the watershed stuff, which Brenda and I are kind of considered the experts in because we're master watershed stewards on the committee. We work with a lot of the inner city churches and stuff through Blue Water. And next week, actually, it was supposed to be Friday and Saturday of this week, but we got canceled out thanks to the Mr. Snowstorm that's supposed to arrive. We were going to have a retreat down in Ocean City to gather the group face to face instead of having the conference calls that we have once a month, which is how we get together people from literally all over 2 states. So one Saturday every month we get together on a conference call, and there could be anywhere, depending on the Saturday, from 5 or 6 people to 20-some people on the conference call, talk about what's going on in our congregations, help support people that other congregations that's trying to get things started, and research things with areas of concern from the inner city to the farmlands and this type of stuff. So we've got a presence on the Delaware Maryland Synod's website and are hoping to build on that right now. It's only a couple pages, but one of the things at the retreat is to build that and increase it to get the awareness up.
Yeah, lots of people in the environmental movement aren't aware that there are these denominational groups that people of faith are organizing around environmental care and are taking action on it. So I commend these groups to you because they can be very helpful to share resources and gain support. So I'm going to move on to a particular part that is a tool that is used by the watershed stewards of this class, but it also can be used for everyone. And so I'm going to ask you to pull out the congregational assessment tool. Oh, okay. All right. So that's coming around. Sorry.
Stewards in Class 8, this is just your capstone proposal outline. So you want to turn to page, I don't know what page it is, in your capstone project proposal.
Right. Sorry, I didn't see a page number on
I'll
it.
just give you one.
Yeah.
But anyway,
So,
this is repeated there.
So, well, thank you, Suzanne. While she's passing that around, I wanted to explain this a little bit because this is a tool that the watershed stewards use in your training to help inform your creation care ministry as part of your capstone project. However, that said, it's a wonderful tool to help you organize wherever you are, whether you're in the Watershed Stewards Academy or just organizing your own congregation, to help you think through this process of who are the leaders I need to talk to, what kind of sacred text or basis of teaching do I need to draw from, and what kind of values. Every community has its own particular values that may be the same faith in two different churches, but that community has a certain charism, if you will, or spirit or message that really speaks to that community. So this really invites you to do some investigation and perhaps even interviewing people in your congregation. This can be a way of starting your green ministry, is just simply having some interviews with people. What do you care about? What kind of things would you like to see happen? And using the communication tools that exist in your congregation, your bulletins, your newsletters, your website, and really listing the projects or educational efforts that are already happening. Build upon what's already been done in order to do more. So if there's an event that's happening, for example, I'll give you an example at a synagogue that I know of, a friend of mine attends, and she said, well, we had this fish fry, but what happens is after the fish fry, there's just this huge pile of trash because we use all these disposable plates and cups and everything, and so the whole experience ends up producing a lot of trash. And so on the front end, she started talking to people about how could we make this whole experience more environmentally caring for God's creation. In the Jewish tradition, they have a phrase saying tikkun olam. Tikkun olam is restoring or repairing the earth. And so she began to talk about how could we act out tikkun olam with this fish fry that we have and not be trashing or producing so much trash. And so it began the conversation, and gradually people began to think, well, maybe we could bring our own plates. And if everybody brought their own set of dishes and plates and cups, and then they took that home with them, that could be a way of diminishing our trash. So, you use what you already have going on as an opportunity. So, that's part of the congregational assessment, and the important parts about this are really to know who your key leaders are, who you need to get on board with this project or this process. And if you'll flip back to part 2, the Creation Care Ministry part 2, this is an additional approach of thinking about cultivating a group of people. It might be through your youth program, or it might be through your religious education program, that you want to actually offer. You could offer a Bible study, a film series. There might be some creative way you can offer education or an outdoor experience. But think about the group that you want to target for your ministry, and just start small. If you have never done that before, and think about how to weave it into your already existing programs, and decide what action that's going to be. So, any questions about that, or comments about perhaps something that you've done to start a program for your youth, or a children's ministry, or a Bible study with your women's group, or something like that around any of this? These are some ideas. Anybody? I know the hour is getting late and people are running, running out of steam here. Okay, well, I wanted to lift that up, and would you add anything, Suzanne, in terms of any other ideas?
The process is the most important thing, the process of talking to people in your congregation and not just making assumptions on your own observations, but really picking different people in your congregation to interview to get the answers to those questions, because you might be surprised at what you hear.
Yes, great. Yes, you might be surprised at what you hear. That's a great thing to remember as you're engaging in this process. Well, during our last time, and we're kind of running up against our last bit here, but I have allowed for a cushion time, so don't be too alarmed. We're going to do two things out of this toolkit, or pardon me, three things, and it may be you'll make choices about what you want to do, but they'll have in your handout packet, and you'll see it's right on the cover of it is the toolkit cover. Has inside of it 3 different activities. And we're going to invite you to do one of those tonight. So if you'll turn to that, it has this cover on it right here, toolkit. And it starts off with publicity, and sometimes people underestimate what it takes to do publicity, or they underestimate their own ability. Now, you don't have to be an expert at communications, but there's some specific tips that I want to share with you about writing a press release. That's going to be one thing that we will invite you to do, or writing a prayer or a litany, and there's some examples there you'll see, and or a blessing. And the third thing is that I wanted you to consider writing a bulletin announcement for your own newsletter or something like that. That would be a way to really mobilize people. So using these as models, I want to invite everybody to pick which one you're going to do. And then I will invite, we won't have time to share everybody's, but I'll invite, and we'll give you this, you probably want to develop this more at home, but this is for starters. We're going to invite you to for the next 20 minutes, and if you get done before that, just raise your hand and we'll see how we're doing. So pick one of these, writing a bulletin announcement, to creating your message that's inviting, inspiring, but brief, or the press release. Again, the important aspects of press releases are what's happening, who to contact, where is it happening, and why. So who, what, where, when, and why. And then in the litanies, I invite you to take a look at these examples. And you can either write a one prayer or a pledge, as you'll see examples of that, a dedication, or for your liturgy. So you can draw from these as examples and use your own words. So I'll give everybody a chance to begin that process and working on your own, and then we'll come back together and share some examples, okay? Yes? No, but I'll ask Suzanne if you guys, you're in the watershed.